Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So on my last video, I got a few comments about people asking me that does Ayurveda really fit into the current systems of sciences that we have? Does Ayurveda really align with the theories of physics, chemistry and biology? And there were questions like how do you fit the Tridosha concept biologically in a human body and the Panchabhotik theory? And I would love to answer all of these questions because I had the same questions when I was in first year, and luckily I had good seniors and good teachers around who answered all of my silliest doubts. So before coming to the answers to these questions, I would here suggest you one thing, that there is a subject called Padartha Vigyana, that is fundamentals of Ayurveda, which is taught to us in our first year to make us aware of the language of Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is also aligning with the science that we study till 12th grade, but it just has a different language to it, which I'll just explain. So if you have the time and if you are really curious about it, you can go and check out a few Padartha Vigyana books, and probably you learn a lot from them. Okay, so coming to the answers to these questions, it's really interesting, trust me. So somebody asked that how do you explain Ayurveda in terms of physics and chemistry, because you are just talking about Panchabhut, five elements. There is also Parmanuvada in Indian science, and you must have heard of this, that there is a Parmanu, then they make Dvainu, then they make Trasrenu, and that is how everything is built up from those entities, and that is how even the Panch Mahabhutas are made up of. So when we talk of Panch Mahabhutas making up the body, we are talking about those atoms themselves making up the body. Now let me try to explain you Tridosha theory. I might not be able to go in very detail because this video is going to be short and informative. I'll try to give a basic idea of Tridoshas to you. So when they say that what are Tridoshas? Tridoshas are bioenergies, but there's a difference between the language of Ayurveda and biology here. So, what they mean by Vata is neurological functions, signals, electric potentials. So, when they say that there is increase of Vata in a particular part, and that part, for example, let's take Kampa Vata, it is correlated with Parkinsonism. So, when there is Kampa Vata, there is increase of Vata, means there is a rapid shooting of signals, electrical signals, and that is why we experience tremors. So those tremors are essentially a sign of increase of vata. Let's take pitta for example. Pitta in Ayurveda means digestive fire. What the digestive fire actually refers to is digestive enzymes. So when we say if you take something tikshna, means something pungent or something spicy or something too acidic, or like eat spicy food in a lot of amount, it increases your pitta, means it increases acidity, and that is what happens biologically, right? Now let me explain kapha to you. Kapha is phalgam, and it refers to mucus, sebum, all this kind of oily secretions. How do we explain kapha in biological terms? Let's say for example you have consumed a lot of cold or frozen or fatty food, let's say ice cream for an example, and it will increase your kapha, which means it will increase the phalgam in your body and it will cause cough or cold. This is how we understand vata, pitta and kapha. All of these are physiological responses, but what we say in modern medicine is physiological responses, and what we say in Ayurvedic terms is functions of the Tridoshas. Okay, coming to the Panchamahabhotik theory. So, a few days back, I wrote my practical exam for Dravya Guna, and there we wrote a practical called Determine the Panchabhotikatva of this Dravya and relate it with pH. There was another in which we were required to relate it with specific gravity. So, how do we relate this? For example, in Ayurveda, if it is given that a particular dravya means a substance by the way, a particular dravya is Agneya, means it has the dominance of Agni Mahabhuta. What does it signify is that substance is either highly alkaline, or highly acidic, and that attributes to its corrosive action. That is essentially the meaning of Agneya or Agneyatva property of that Dravya. So it is aligning with the current knowledge of science that we have. There's just a difference of language that we need to understand. Now, if we similarly, if we talk about the specific gravity, like if there is less specific gravity of a dravya, we say that it has Akasha Mahabhuta predominance. Akasha is space or ether, by the way. What it essentially means is that substance has low specific gravity. So, this is a vague explanation of how Panchamahabhotik theory works. If you want to read more about it, there are some really good Padartha Vigyana books which I can recommend to you. And there is another theory, like how do we understand? There was someone who asked that how do you understand the action of a drug on the basis of Ayurvedic principles? So in Ayurveda, we read about drugs and their actions in the form of Rasa Panchika, which is Rasa, Virya, Vipaka, Karma, and Prabhava. So how I'll give an example of the Rasa theory. When we say that something is Madhura Rasa, it is Prenana, means it is nourishing in nature. So Madhura Rasa refers to sweet taste. What substances have sweet taste? Substances which have glucose or amino acids have sweet taste. What do carbohydrate rich foods do? They increase the energy in your body. What do amino acids do? They help in building tissues in your body. That is essentially how they are nourishing in nature. Again, I'll have to elaborate a lot many Ayurvedic terminologies here, but there is essentially a difference of language between Ayurveda and modern biology. I'll try to put it in the best words possible. Like, Ayurveda is evolving and it should evolve since it is a science. Keeping the fundamental and basic principles same and then evolving is the way to get there. So, what are the fundamental principles of Ayurveda? Once we understand the language of it, once we understand what they are meaning, and we can decode what is there in those sutras, keeping them as base, we can move further. I hope it makes sense. Let me know in the comments if it makes sense to you. Otherwise, I'll recommend you the book to read for yourself. I have really good teachers here in my college and also seniors. So when I was in first year and I used to ask them all these questions, that how is it even working, how is it even the same questions that you people might be having right now. So they used to explain each and every doubt to me, and I'm really grateful for that. But when I asked my teacher finally that when will I stop getting all these doubts every time I read something, because it immediately clashes with the current scientific knowledge that I have. And he told me that, you know what, just read it in Ayurvedic language first, and if you'll understand it well in the language of Ayurveda, you'll eventually be able to relate it with the modern science, and it has really worked. Let me know in the comments below if you found it any logical. Please refrain from using any derogatory language, because if you try to roast me, I can roast you better. And let's just have healthy discussions further, because I see some people being genuinely interested here, and I am genuinely interested. Okay, that's it for this. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be uploading more such content in my upcoming videos. Thank you and bye bye.